This show feels like the longest show coming, right? We haven't had a chance to dive
that's
into
true.
all of the head coaching changes, and I want to say I know it's kind of embarrassing for the league. The dominance of the former Chicago Bears head coaches now getting opportunities in the league, as you know. Matt Nagy, new offensive coordinator for the Giants. That's a game changer for the Giants. And of course, don't forget John Fox, back in the NFL, special assistant with the Bills. The Bears
that was out of left field. I was like, what?
And you know that Eberflus, he's just taking a year off because the offer's going to flood in next year, right? Like they're going to flood in. So it's just like it's embarrassing for the rest of the league how insanely great the cycle has been for former Chicago Bears head coaches. I started laughing. I was like, as I was prepping for the show, I was like totally forgot in the last 2 weeks of all the crazy storylines and the Super Bowl of like, shit, that's right. Matt Nagy got a job. And oh my God, that's right. The Bills hired John Fox is kind of like Joe Brady's new, and let's bring in a guy who, can run a program and help him figure out, how to make sure your program is being run really well. So shout out to Nagy and Fox and Eberflus. I'm sure your time is coming. You'll be fine.
Yeah, I'm surprised Nagy didn't join the Titans squad, given that they have 9 bald coaches.
It's awesome.
Which is pretty impressive. I feel like that's even hard to do in the NFL, let alone any other place. So kudos to them.
I will say when we were going to get to the Titans, I just quickly we talk more about it, but like the Brian Daboll hire might sneaky be actually one of the best hires of this entire cycle. And
to help Cam Ward out and help develop him into whatever the next iteration of that coaching staff will be, or maybe it's going to be a coaching staff that sticks around. I mean, maybe Robert Saleh has a plan. Mike Vrabel-esque kind of second stop. Obviously, it's a lot different, but both of them were coaches for not great organizations with less than stellar talent, right? And maybe were underappreciated during their tenure with defensive-minded guys for the most part. So there are some parallels there, and maybe he sticks around. And Daboll might be one of those guys that's like the Josh McDaniels of the world that is just a really good coordinator and maybe isn't meant to be a head coach, which is perfectly fine. These coordinators make a lot of money. Like, this is a great living. I think a lot of people forget or try and act as if it's some sort of like demotion a lot of times. It's like, that's just the nature of the league, right? It's kind of like in TV. Like if you're, a main anchor, but you go to be like a reporter. Well, if you're being a reporter for, a
great organization,
minutes, you're going to be making a good living there, even if you're not an anchor for, an ABC affiliate somewhere. So it's all relative at that point.
Well, and I just like there's good reports that that Daboll really wanted to try to trade up to go get him Cam Ward, like that he was a Cam Ward guy.
That's true.
And it goes to show too, like, hey, you always run the risk, right? If you're the defensive coach, you always run the risk that, well, the offensive coordinator is going to leave, and then so should we hire the defensive coach? But it does go to show that Saleh is not pulling any punches in his return to head coaching. That, hey, I'm going to try to put a hell of a staff together. Yep. It's exciting. There's so many things to talk about. There's so many names. We got 10 openings to cover.
10 openings. Let's get to it. We'll talk all of the new head coaches in the NFL coming up next.
Look at those pearly whites on you, Dan.
I was going to say, shout out to ChatGPT for really hooking a brother up with the eyeliner there, man.
Those teeth were blinding.
They were just, it's next level right there. Yeah. And I will say they did Mike McCarthy well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
Maybe
yeah,
he's got to send a check to somebody
yeah.
out there. I would love for us to start there, Mark,
Let's do
because
it.
um, we did briefly touch on John Harbaugh to the Giants, which was, one of the biggest hire early as well in this cycle. But, aside from me being a Steelers fan, the Mike McCarthy news to Pittsburgh was still a headliner for sure. And so I think that's a good place for us to start.
Yeah.
We talked about this a couple weeks back when it first happened, and we knew that we were going to save it for this episode. And you had mentioned to me that you actually had very positive thoughts about this hire, which did take me off guard at first. And obviously, I've got a lot of thoughts about it. I had an initial reaction that has now changed slightly, if not even more significantly than that. But really curious to hear what you have to say about Mike McCarthy to the Steelers first and foremost.
Well, like you at first, I was a little taken aback, but then my immediate thought that came to my head was like, "Oh, I- if I'm a Steelers fan and I don't get like the young great hire, right? I didn't feel like there was a Ben Johnson in this cycle, right? A lot of people are saying, "Oh, Jesse Minter is, maybe that is the name,
Mhm.
he's maybe more the Mike McDonald." But my instant thought was, this gives Pittsburgh freedom. Like it gives you the ability to say, "Hey, if we hired some 35-year-old defensive coordinator, what would happen? If by year 5 it was maybe still not going great, you'd say, well, no, we're going to give him time, or, Pittsburgh, they're not going to fire him. They're going to let this thing breathe or whatever. If Mike McCarthy stinks in 2 years, you'd be like, well, fire his ass and get him out of here, because he was brought in to win now and keep this train moving, right? And if he's winning and doing well, it's still not going to last 15 years like it did with Mike Tomlin, because he's in his early mid 60s. And so it's one of those, I just think, like, overall, it helps Pittsburgh break the cycle. And maybe that's not what Pittsburgh fans wanted, but for me, I feel like a sense of relief in that, where if I'm you know, panicking about my head coach in 2 years or 3 years from now, and he's not good enough. Well, if he's a young guy, you're going to be like, well, Pittsburgh's never going to fire him because it's the Pittsburgh way. We got to give it time and blah, blah. But if it's Mike McCarthy, it's going to be really easy to cut bait. And then for the Steelers to maybe finally go into like a true rebuild. It felt like you learned for sure your team is doesn't want to do a rebuild. They want to just win and keep winning and retooling.
Yeah.
Well, Mike McCarthy works for that, and maybe, just maybe, he can elevate Pittsburgh back to some playoff wins. Maybe, I don't know if it's Super Bowl, but hey, winning playoff games as opposed to what Tomlin hasn't done over most of the last decade. I don't think it's a disaster. Obviously, you want the perfect young head coach to build around. We see the success of that. I just didn't know if that guy was out there in this cycle, and so I think on the alternative is it helps Pittsburgh break this cycle. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I mean, everything you said there does make a lot of sense. And I tend to agree that it does appear that the young dynamite head coach wasn't necessarily a part of this cycle. Um, I mean, the two biggest names really that had been floated around were Chris Shula and Nate Scheelhaus, both from the Rams. Scheelhaus is like 33. Shula, 30, late 30s, great defensive coordinator. Neither of them got jobs. So once the cycle was complete, it did make me pause, because those were I really wanted one of those two guys going into the search. And so the fact that neither of them got hired did give me a little bit of a pause, I must say. And okay, clearly there were things in these interviews that didn't wow these organizations across the board, good and bad organizations. And so maybe there's something there to it, or maybe they just needed some more time.
Yeah, both of those felt a little bit like the Ben Johnson like 2 years ago when he
Right.
was
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
he turned down jobs and then waited, and then it was like, oh, now the jobs that I really want are open.
Yeah, except they didn't turn down any jobs though, and
And
that's,
that's
or as far as we know. Yeah,
yeah,
I guess it could have happened
that's the
potentially.
caveat, right? That's the caveat. But so we'll see. But I want to keep going. But yeah, that it had a sense to that, and I agree. If you're not wowing people and you're not turning down jobs, maybe it is too early. Maybe you need more
Yeah,
time.
and it could just be that. It could just be, a lot of teams felt like, okay, these guys are, 2 to 3 years away from being that material, and, so be it. Maybe they'll be a part of the coaching cycle next year or the year after. I'll start with the bad, that this hire signals to me, and then I'll talk about the good because I do
Okay.
think I think there's more good than bad, even though initially I was kind of like completely underwhelmed, but slightly devastated when I first heard the news because I thought this was the one big opportunity to really give this a jolt and a reset and get it out of this mindset. So while you said it breaks the cycle, this and so I'll start with the bad. It also continues the cycle of consistently being a 9, 10, 11 win team and not winning a playoff game. McCarthy got fired because he didn't win a playoff game. He goes to Dallas and had, 3 great 12 win seasons back to back to back. So that's a little bit different for sure. He got way more production in the regular season than Tomlin has out of the Steelers in recent years, but those didn't translate into playoff wins. So McCarthy comes into this situation with kind of the same rap that Tomlin's had for the last decade plus. On top of that, I actually really believe after hearing Art Rooney and hearing all of the reports that come out that they genuinely did not want Tomlin gone. And that tells me that this organization wasn't ready to move on. And therefore they go into this coaching search with the mindset of, oh, well, we got to screen. How are we going to recapture what we had? We have to get what we had and get to that level. And, oh, what's the lowest hanging fruit available? The Pittsburgh guy who has experience, who's won a Super Bowl, who has a very, very similar overall resume to the coach that just left us. Let's just get that in. Phew, relief. We kept ourselves above water. That wasn't the mentality I was hoping that this team would take into this. I was hoping this team would take a let's swing for the fences, and if we fall flat on our faces, then we get back up and we try again. Because damn it, we're the Pittsburgh Steelers, and we're going to be an attractive job, and we should get some of the best candidates available, regardless of what position we're in. And then finally, the other, downside to all of this, outside of age and the fact that it was a 5-year contract, that's standard. Every coach that gets hired signs a 5-year contract. Doesn't mean that's going to go 5 years. Is the fact that I am the one big thing I was hoping additionally out of this cycle was innovation. And McCarthy's not necessarily that guy. He's been around the league for a very long time. He has roots planted. I was hoping, okay, if he gets hired, maybe he's just going to inject a ton of youth into this coaching staff. And I'll get to that on the positive side because there are a lot of positives with this coaching staff. But at the same time, there's like 3 really, really young guys, and the rest are all, 50s and older. Dudes from his stops in Green Bay, from his stops in Dallas, of course. And so I was like, okay, it's just like the good old boys club all over again, which is what Tomlin was. Like Tomlin surrounded himself with yes men and promoted from within constantly, and very rarely, if ever, brought in outside voices. So those are the 3 big, overall downsides to me of this hire. Now for the positives, McCarthy's an offensive guy that has, whether you want to credit him for the development of Aaron Rodgers, for the improvements of Dak Prescott, none of us are going to be able to know how much weight he held over them. I mean, generational talent in Aaron and a really solid
Step
quarterback.
on the scale, Mike. Step on the scale.
Yeah, exactly. That being said, I mean, he's got to get some credit for getting production out of these guys. And Aaron was, not Aaron when he started with Mike McCarthy. So he's got to get some credit for that. And he's done a good job of working and developing quarterbacks in a variety of ways and opening things up and using the middle of the field, which is something the Steelers haven't done for a very, very long time. It seems I think this roster is going to need a lot of rehashing to be able to fit what Mike McCarthy wants to do. But that being said, it's refreshing, and I hope, given his, outward support of Will Howard, that will at least give that an opportunity to see what that could be going into next year and beyond. I do worry that Aaron will come back because I don't want that. I don't see Aaron coming back with the first year of this whole new regime and this roster as being a team that is going to make the run. I just don't see it. I'd rather just see what we got in Will Howard. But nonetheless, he's an offensive guy, and that part is refreshing. The other part, to the fact of his staff, he grew the staff. Now, it's not above average.
It's such a funny thing that it's like, hey guys, Pittsburgh finally has more coaches.
Yeah, right.
It's like,
yeah.
if you don't know, like if you're kind of new to our show, it's something you've brought up many times. But if you don't follow Pittsburgh closely, it's one of those things you just don't know. People don't talk about it nationally.
Yeah, and it's not a narrative.
Pittsburgh refuses to spend more money to hire more coaches. There's no limit on the amount of coaches you can have.
Yeah,
but Pittsburgh
and that doesn't count against your cap, so you can spend whatever you want to spend.
It's just the family writing a check, and Pittsburgh doesn't do it.
And honestly, I don't know if that's the Roonies or if it was Tomlin a lot of times, like saying, I don't want
maybe more cooks in the kitchen.
It could be. Yeah. That being said, like, it may seem minor, and it is in some respects, but like they're only 2 more coaches than they were last year. But it's kind of the designation of the coaches that's interesting. And for the last, I think it was 7 or 8 years, Pittsburgh has had the fewest coaches in the league. So they went from 17 for multiple years, and then 19 and 18 fluctuating in recent years. League average is 23. Mike McCarthy has brought it to 21. So we're slightly below average, but a couple more than what Tomlin had in recent years. And I do like he's brought on a very interesting mix. Like, he's brought on some really old guys that are established. Offensive line coach James Campen, very well regarded. He those Packers O-lines from the 2010s were really good. And he, is a credit to that. And then they bring on a couple first-time NFL head coaches in from the college ranks even. So I'm intrigued to see how that meshes, how that coalesces. But I like some of the hires a lot, and I particularly like offensive coordinator coming from the Kevin O'Connell. He was Kevin O'Connell's right-hand man the entire time. Kevin O'Connell brought him to Minnesota.
And it's good for Mike. I love that hire too, because it's good for Mike. He's like, hey, I'm going to bring in a different voice.
Yes.
And I'm going to try to learn some of this Sean McVay stuff that you've learned under.
Yeah, so hopefully that can address the innovation,
the run game at least.
element.
You know what I mean? Yeah,
yeah, for sure, because that's Mike McCarthy's never been known to have a run game.
Mike's kind of that West Coast offense. I want 3 receivers spread out, 1 tight end and a running back, and let's go in a shotgun and let's throw the ball. Which leads to the question. Obviously, it's not a coaching thing, but we kind of can button our Pittsburgh conversation with the quarterback position. You mentioned Will Howard. I think that Aaron Rodgers is interesting. As a fan perspective, I kind of would love to see Aaron and Mike one more year together.
Sure, yeah, it'd be a great story.
But that's easier for me to say as a guy who just wants to watch a Sunday night football game with the Steelers as a diehard, right? And like, this is my team and I want to see them win a Super Bowl. How does, where are you at with the quarterback position at this point?
Yeah, I just think that it's, to me, it's gonna potentially delay. It's going to add more questions and potentially delay things moving forward. I think, bringing Aaron Rodgers back is probably going to guarantee a 10-win season. Like, that's great. That's nothing new from what we've experienced in the last decade. They need a lot of help in that regard. Like, they need 2 more receivers into the mix there. They need to figure out what they're going to do with their tight end situation and how are they going to handle the running back. I mean, it's all new. And so while Aaron, the one thing that Aaron would help with is teaching the other guys how to take what they did last year and translate it to Mike McCarthy's system. That's always helpful, which is why I liked that Mike McCarthy kept on like 2 coaches, one on each side of the ball, to maybe help translate the language a little bit for guys who are having to learn completely new systems. Um, my selfish want would be to just roll out Will Howard, see what you have, and if the season sucks, like I truly, there's just like nobody is gonna like break down the walls in Pittsburgh. If they started Will Howard all season, it turns into a 6-win campaign. Like, is any realistic, serious fan going to expect anything out of that? On the flip side, if you find out that you got something there, then like, okay, that's great. Now we've got like some stability with a young quarterback and the head coach who can develop him and pass him on as a developed quarterback to the next head coach, whoever that may be.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't work out, that then gives you the added bonus of being in a draft position that you ideally need to be in to be able to get a quarterback of the future. That's my biggest worry, is that they got 12 draft picks this year, Mark. And we all thought last year, I was super excited that they had 12 draft picks. I was like, this is perfect. That's a stacked quarterback draft class.
And no one came out.
And what happened? Nobody came out. Now we're talking about potentially one quarterback going in the first round.
And it's a very good quarterback, right? Like Fernando, we have a lot of high hopes for.
Right.
But all of a sudden there's Ty Simpson talk, and it's like, man, first round pricing for some of those other names are just, I don't know if the value's there. And listen, I love that you said what I think. I agree with you 100%. The Will Howard thing is the way to go, unless you start kind of, summer ball and some of that stuff. And if Mike immediately realizes like, oh no, this kid just doesn't have it, right? Like if he just doesn't have it, then you can maybe push the Aaron Rodgers button, right? Where it's like, Aaron's probably not going to sign anywhere very quickly.
Right.
He doesn't want to have to necessarily go to camp. They can play the excuse of like, well, Aaron knows me, and we, like if he comes in late, like it wouldn't be the biggest deal. I think, but yeah, I mean, look at what Tyler Shuck did. I mean, literally the Saints were kind of like, all right, throw Shuck out there. Do we have anything? And now it's like, oh shit, we got something. Like
what they end the season, a 4-game win streak or something, and like that. So
at many points of the year, I would argue overall, even though, credit to Cam Ward for starting every game. Like that's huge. That's incredible, especially with everything he went through. I'd argue if you tell me who's the best looking rookie quarterback, like going into the second year right now, it's Tyler Shuck.
Yeah. Like, he looked a lot better than Jackson Dart at a lot of times.
Well, and he doesn't use his head to ram through brick walls, which is actually a really important thing to do at the quarterback position. So yeah, listen, we spent a lot of time in Pittsburgh, but I think it's the one that makes the most sense for us to do it. And I will say overall, I think it could have been worse. Like I really do. I mean, especially if you get the sense that Pittsburgh felt like shit, we really didn't want to move on from Mike and Tomlin, and so now it's kind of like a scramble. I really think ending up with the wrong young guy in a place like Pittsburgh could be very detrimental, because they would maybe hang on for way too long, right? And then we all know what long-term bad coaching can do to an organization. It's just I've dealt with it. I mean, it's not good. It's just not good. And so,
they could have drafted, or they could have hired Brian Flores, which I really didn't want Brian Flores, because honestly, there's so much smoke around him as a person that like makes me like, that's not going to be fun to root for.
Have to trust that the guy is rehabilitated with quarterbacks and is a nicer guy. That's a lot versus a guy like Saleh, where it's like, oh no, he definitely can coach. He's definitely got all the traits we like. New York just was a hellhole. And so, And from all reports, Saleh never wanted to get rid of Sam Darnold. So it's like, and that's a lot
Yikes.
of that could be all revisionist history. We don't know.
Yeah.
But I do think the Pittsburgh was the right place to start because I agree with you. Besides, and maybe we'll get to him later on, Clint Kubiak. I'm not as like Clint Kubiak's the wonder kid that like Ben Johnson or Mike McDaniel even felt like they were. We'll see. I'm not as sold on like, no, that was the young wonder kid guy
Yeah.
that everyone missed out on. I don't know if that guy existed in this class.
Well, and again, I mean, it's are they head coach material? I mean, it was pretty clear, like not to play Monday morning quarterback, but like it was pretty clear that Ben Johnson had the qualities of a head coach. Now, whether or not it was going to pan out, you weren't sure.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, if we look back, like, did Mike McDaniel like give off that vibe? He was perfect for the Miami vibe. I will give him that, right?
Yeah.
Like that was a perfect spot for him to be
well.
a head coach, but he always seemed like an incredible offensive coordinator that was just maybe in over his head as a head coach in this league. I don't know. But nonetheless, yeah, we'll move on. I know we've talked briefly about John Harbaugh to the Giants.
Yeah,
it happened so early in the cycle, but let's touch on that. I mean, do you feel, I know Colin Cowherd has talked about the Giants are now the clear double their win total team, right?
Yeah, he likes to make his pick.
And I mean, it's hard to argue against that. John Harbaugh is the ultimate grown-up culture builder, has the success walking into the room. And I think it's a great landing spot for him. He gets also a young quarterback who might be, they hope, the face of the franchise moving forward. So it's not like he's starting from ground zero.
Yeah.
And he's got a really talented defense to work with there too. So I think this makes for a really solid place for him and for the Giants, who need to contend with the Philadelphia Eagles currently, of like the bully you around type of thing. John Harbaugh brings that intensity, I think, to the Giants that they haven't had in a long time.
Listen, the Giants have been since Coughlin. I mean, it's like 15 years of like, if you go back and look at those names, you're like, what were they doing? Like they needed this. They needed this more than Harbaugh needed it. But I think Harbaugh benefits from the Giants in the sense that if Harbaugh can have the second part of his career, he gets to the NFC, he gets away from his brother. If he has the second part of his career, like, hey, win a division a couple times, you know what I mean? Have a playoff run a couple times, and then can ride off the sunset. He's, I think, already a Hall of Fame coach for the tenure, the length, the success. I think it really will pad that resume for him as just, him and the Harbaugh family is this ultimate football family. I don't love the offensive coordinator Matt Nagy hire, I got to be honest, but we'll see. I mean, John comes from the special teams background, but listen, he knows offense, and I mean, like, he knows what he wants from his offense, and I think he knows also that Nagy's a guy that this is kind of a, hey, like we need to work together. You got to prove it if you want to accomplish anything as a head coach. I mean, there were 10 openings, and Nagy's an offensive guy, and it didn't even really come close for him getting a job. So I think he might need John Harbaugh and getting away from Andy Reid's shadow again once more as a little bit of help. But I overall don't like the hire just because of my disdain for Nagy's love for bubble screens and everything along the line of scrimmage and behind the line of scrimmage. But I'll say this, final point on it. It's Harbaugh. It's New York. You have Harbaugh in LA. It just feels right for the NFL. If it doesn't work for Harbaugh in New York, I don't know how many people are going to really blame Harbaugh. That's a benefit for him too, right? He's going into a situation where it's like, dude, McAdoo and all these wacky coaches, Joe Judge, have just been a kind of a mess the last couple of years. And honestly, he gets a pass too, because he gets a year of Jackson Dart. And if things don't go great, you know what he gets to say? Jackson wasn't my guy. I didn't draft him. And so he gets to then maybe draft another quarterback or bring in a new quarterback. So he gets kind of like a 2-year buffer window before he really even has to win. I know Colin thinks they'll win 8 or 9 games and be sniffing the playoffs. It wouldn't shock me if they do, but it also wouldn't shock me if Jackson Dart doesn't really take a step in year 2. Jackson Dart continues to get injured, and then they're looking for a quarterback, and you're not really seeing a Giants resurgence until maybe year 3 of Harbaugh, but we're not blaming Harbaugh, right? Like I think it's a really smart spot for him. He's got a long runway and it's winnable. Like the division, I think the Cowboys in the next year or two are really going to be worse off as they start to decline from poor coaching and an aging Dak Prescott roster. The Eagles are messy, and Washington I think is downgraded. We could talk about some of those moves maybe later on too. So that's my initial. That's my final thoughts, I guess, on Harbaugh.
Yeah, no, I think that's all well taken. Really good points about the lack of pressure. Really, I mean, he, like you said, he has so many outs here that works. I truly do think it's going to work out, though. I mean, even if it doesn't work and to the point where they're winning playoff games, they're going to be a stabilized franchise, I think, from John Harbaugh alone. Let's go to the Atlanta Falcons. Kevin Stefanski, really solid hire. 2 great running backs there. Of course, Bijan's a monster. They've got a lot of weapons there to work with. Kyle Pitts, we should mention as well that the window to franchise tag is now open, and there are a lot of key candidates for that tag, including Kyle Pitts. We'll see if the Falcons elect to use it on that. But, I mean, it seemed premature for the Browns to move off Kevin Stefanski, but maybe at the same time it wasn't, because at least for Stefanski's sake, he gets to get out of there, and that was going to be a disaster. But, man, I can't think of more better scheme fits for personnel than this move to Atlanta. What about you?
Listen, I'm if I was a Falcons fan, I'd be over the moon. As a Bears fan, I hate it because I'm like, I don't want Stefanski in the NFC. I don't want the NFC South to start get really competent and having to go back to like being a problem. And I think he can make Atlanta a problem. I also think, again, it's a great runway. I didn't draft Michael Penix Jr. You guys put me with Michael Penix Jr. He'll start next year. If it's not great, he'll get to go. I go get my guy, whether it's a veteran or whether it's a rookie. And so, again, he's got at least a 2-year window before anyone, I think, really has expectations. He also, I think, can win now with Bijan. It'll be interesting to see what they do with Kyle Pitts. If Kyle Pitts gets a big offer somewhere, guess who's a free agent tight end? David Njoku. He could bring a guy like that in to like get my system going.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there's a lot there for him. Obviously, it's, to me, it was, I think I had it as the number 1 opening before the Baltimore Pittsburgh, like in those initial wave, because again, it's just like that division is so winnable. And you do have an owner who, while he does seem to meddle a little, and he's kind of got that weird presence, Mr. Blank. He seems very committed to winning. He also seems very committed to the culture and experience in Atlanta. They're doing great things with that new stadium. And then I love the organizational hire. You get Stefanski, and then you get Matt Ryan, and then they steal my guy Ian Cunningham from the Bears, who to be their general manager, who everyone's been raving about for the last couple of years. I thought Ian Cunningham was going to leave over the last 3 years. He found the right spot. So I think they have a really good chance to turn this thing around. A lot of it will depend on the play of the quarterback, but Stefanski will get the most out of him, and he gets to get away from that Lake Erie chaos. It's such a win for him and such a win for Atlanta.
So for the Browns now, his previous destination, they go and poach offensive coordinator Todd Monken from the Baltimore Ravens to be the head coach here. Is this the Browns, in your view, trying to get a win by taking just a Ravens guy that is offensive minded and can work with a young quarterback? Because it did seem like it was surprising. I didn't really know that Todd Monken was that much of a candidate. I don't know that he was a candidate elsewhere even. Did it seem like the Browns just trying to win one over on the Ravens and trying to somehow maybe see if like, oh, we can appease, our young quarterback by getting, Todd Monken, who's worked with Lamar? Like, just seemed weird. It seemed like a strange and short-sighted process, even if they did end up on Todd Monken at the end of the day. it didn't seem like they tested out enough people even in the process. They were kind of just,
Well,
"Oh, Todd, you're the guy. You got this. Let's go."
remember there was multiple people who withdrew their consideration from the Browns, and there was multiple people who
Yes,
didn't even
that's
take
true.
Browns interviews. I don't even think like guys like Salah even took interviews from the Browns. Um, Here's my overall very quick thought on this: is a good luck to Todd. I have no qualms against Todd Monken. I wish him nothing but success. Godspeed. I think what it really is the Browns being extremely dysfunctional, and they let go of a top tier head coach. And maybe they thought there was only going to be 5 openings. Well, there ended up being 10, and you were by far one of the bottom 1, 2, or 3 in a 10-team opening. You're not getting your guy again, who is instantly becomes the 1 or 2 best coach available. I think he's the Mike Vrabel. Stefanski is the Mike Vrabel of this cycle. You weren't going to get Harbaugh because Harbaugh is an elite head coach that can go to anywhere he wanted to go. And so I think you just were left going, oh crap, there's now way more seats open at this table. And the pretty girl, why would she sit by me at all if there's all these other seats and other people to sit by? It's just a miss. A good luck. Again, it feels to me like a little bit of the Cowboys hire from last year. Like I might be blown away. Maybe Monken is able to connect and has, now that gets control, it turns into something. But
Yeah.
it's Cleveland. Like it's Cleveland. Like they have a lot to prove before I go, I feel really excited. And the Browns are turning in the right direction.
And it is good to mention, all of these guys. We obviously don't know any of these guys personally, and we
Yeah.
don't know enough about the inner workings of the NFL to know whether or not a guy's going to make it. Hell, these teams don't even know if these guys are going to make it.
Yeah.
So, yes, Todd Monken could turn around and be really, really good. And we're sitting here with egg on our face. But, history tells that
Good luck to
Cleveland
Todd.
just doesn't make good decisions. Even when they made a good decision hiring Kevin Stefanski, they made subsequent terrible decisions with contracts, etc. So, yeah, it's more of a I'll see it, I'll believe it when I see it type of situation.
Yeah.
We'll stay in division to round out the AFC North that had 3 openings this cycle, which is wild. The Ravens hired Jesse Minter, which has been lauded as one of the best hires, if not the best hire of this cycle. The defensive coordinator for the Chargers had a lot of success, comes over to the Ravens. They get this defensive-minded head coach to help lift a unit that has been the struggling unit for this team in the last 4-ish, 5 years, and just is without a lot of key pieces there. So I imagine he's going to be a big part of rebuilding the bare bones of the Ravens defensive roster. And he's a young up and coming guy that maybe he can have a Mike McDonald type of resurgence with an already established MVP caliber quarterback. So it's very intriguing. I'm bummed as a Steelers fan. Like I think it's going to work out pretty well for them in Baltimore. And yeah, Jesse Minter does seem like one of those, borderline is going to work out type of guys in this cycle.
I mean, meteoric rise. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. He was the guy in Michigan. He was like Harbaugh. Was he with Harbaugh in Michigan?
Yeah, he was.
And so
and they had the best defense in the country. And
yeah, I mean, and so listen, we can get into Connor Stallions talk. I don't really want to, but I will. I'll say, this is the one that feels like, hey, we are doing the playbook, right? We're doing what we should be doing. Young, energetic guy. Well, as much as it worked with Mike McDaniel, and you see with Seattle, McDonald, I still am going to blow that, even though he's a Super Bowl winning head coach. Mike McDonald, Mike McDaniels, Mike McDonald.
It's too difficult. And then we got Josh McDaniels on top.
You also, who was the meteoric guy with a young guy rising Rams defensive coordinator, and then he ends up with the Chargers, Brandon Staley. So like,
right.
like Robert Saleh, young guy, head coach, meteoric rise, defensive guy. Like, so it doesn't feel as much like a I'm ready to say home run. But what he has going for him, obviously, Lamar Jackson, and obviously, as you know, a great organization, an extremely well-run organization. So he's got a ton going for him in that regard. And so, well, I think it'll work. Yeah, but I'd still be shocked if we're talking about Jesse Minter, head coach of the Ravens 10 years from now. You know what I mean? Because that just the Harbaugh Tomlin thing is an insane
It
thing.
just doesn't happen.
It
Yeah.
just doesn't happen. And so like I said, I love Ben Johnson, but would I be shocked if I'm still talking about Ben Johnson as the Bears head coach in 10 years from now? I'd be pretty shocked.
It's a long time.
It's because it's a long time. And you just never, the NFL is a year-to-year league. We see that. Look at what just happened with the Patriots. Like
Sean McVay hasn't even been the head coach
for 10 years.
10 years.
Yeah, it's a long, long time. So listen, I think the Ravens had a leg up in over the Steelers in this cycle because if you're trying to go get the guy who fits your brand, they have very similar brands, right? Very similar brands. They have we have Lamar Jackson. We have Lamar Jackson. So maybe that was just the thing for Jesse Minter. And maybe it's a Harbaugh connection too. Maybe John and Jim were like, dude, it's the Ravens. Like, about this organization, about Bob, you know what I mean? So maybe there was all that. Good luck to him and the Ravens. I think it's a good hire. It feels like this, like you checked the boxes, right? It kind of like how I felt with Ben Johnson last year. Like, this checks the boxes.
Yeah.
Now you got to play the games.
Alex Kozora of Steelers Depot, friend of the show, he's been on here before. His top candidate for the Steelers job early in the cycle was Jeff Hafley. He said right off the bat that he wanted Jeff Hafley. And Hafley was kind of still in some regards kind of like an underrated hire in the cycle, maybe because it happened, earlier before several of the other big names were hired and floated out there. But Hafley, a really highly regarded defensive guy throughout his entire career, has had head coaching experience at the college ranks, Boston College, and help lead a Packers defense that many would say outperformed expectations for several years. Now, granted, after they, after the Parsons injury this past season, they fell off considerably, and so people are using that as a knock. But overall, he was a guy from all reports, Mark, that blew interviews out of the water, and there were multiple teams vying to have him as their head coach. The Dolphins went out. I like this merely for the fact that it's a complete shift. It's like a culture. We need to get like toughness here in Miami.
Kind of like Brian Flores. Like, let's get toughness in Miami.
Yeah. Only like a nicer version of Brian Flores over there. So I think it could absolutely work. I also think it signals, too, that they are more than ready to just completely move on from like this.
Well, they've already cut Tyreek Hill and Bradley Chubb. Yeah.
Those guys have moved on. Tua is hanging on by the thinnest of threads.
Or heaviest of cap hits.
But there is a lot of promise there, especially on the defensive side, where they started to get some dudes over the last couple of years. Like, there's actually some good personnel to work with in Miami. I feel like this could be a very quick turnaround defensively. The offense, there's still a lot of question marks about like how they get this right and who the quarterback will be. But I do think Jeff Hafley is going to get that side of the ball ironed out pretty quickly, similar to what we saw from DeMeco Ryans, barring getting, 4 all-pro players. I think we're going to see a similar improvement on that side of the ball.
This dude just made a great playbook for so many college coaches to follow. If you didn't know, 3 years ago, Jeff Hafley was the head coach of Boston College and was a very good college head coach at a good program, had Boston College fighting above their weight class. And what does he do? He takes the job as the defensive coordinator, goes from head coach to defensive coordinator for the Packers. Immediate jump. And then what does he do? He leads an incredible defense for 2 years, shows that I can coach at this level, and then look, 3 years later, he's the head coach of the Miami Dolphins. Like, what a jump. And I think Harbaugh, I have a bunch of notes I want to run through a couple like at the very end. Harbaugh just did the same thing. I think the Western Michigan University defensive coordinator, Chris O'Leary, just became the defensive coordinator for the Chargers. And here's a guy that if Chris O'Leary leads that really talented Chargers defense to a couple of years, we might be talking about Chris O'Leary is the next young up-and-coming defensive head coach. It's a jump with how insane college football is getting, where the recruiting, the NIL, the headaches you have to deal with. I can see this being a playbook for a lot of other guys. So that's my little rant on that. I think it's a good hire. I think he's got head coaching experience. He's young. He's energized. Defensive guys are having a little bit of a moment right now. And yeah, Miami, I think it's a way for them to have a culture shift without going, maybe the Brian Flores disaster direction of a guy who also maybe can appreciate and talk offense a little bit more and not make quarterbacks cry. Miami is sneaky, though. Miami is sneaky. They're like the Chicago Bears, man. Like they're a great brand and a great name, and you think of them as not the Lions, you think of them as not the Browns. But historically, historically, they're way closer. The Bears were way closer to the Browns and the Lions than they were the Steelers and the Packers for the last 20 years. That's the Dolphins too. They're way closer to the Browns and those teams than they've been to the Patriots and the Ravens the last 20 years. So we'll see. That's just another organization that I'm just going to wait and see. But again, it feels like they checked the right boxes. So I'll give them the benefit of the doubt there.
For sure. Let's go to one of the young offensive guys. The Cardinals hire offensive coordinator Mike LaFleur to be the head coach.
What is this man doing with his hair? His brother is one of the most attractive guys, not just in the league, like just hands down. He
just in general
is a very attractive man. I like get so annoyed when the Packers play because my wife's just like, well, he is very handsome. It's like, we all get it. He's handsome.
we get it. We know.
We get it. And now I get like, well, Ben Johnson's good looking, but he's not like LaFleur good looking. It's like, I get it. This LaFleur, he looks like someone, I saw it online. I'm not taking credit for it. The bad Ronaldo statue. It's funny if you find that side.
What about the Dwayne Wade one, dude?
I don't. Well, no.
No, I know, but the hair.
It's just like it's nice. Very odd look. He's got an odd look. It's like he's completely bald all the way around. He's like reverse bald, and the only hair is like here, but it's not like it's very weird. Just look it up. Anyways. I believe that he knows offense. I believe he's from the right tree, right? Like the Cardinals are checking the boxes. We steal a division rivals guy, check the boxes. But again, the Cardinals might sneaky be the worst organization that's not the Browns or the Jets in the NFL. Like, I mean, they had that run with Kurt Warner and Carson Palmer. And it's diluted our idea of what the Cardinals have been for their entire franchise history. Look at the Cardinals' history. They are a historically bad. They're the Lions. They really are the Lions. They've been around for forever, and they have won nothing. Like literally nothing. The only thing that the Lions is the Cardinals is we think of the Cardinals as better because it's Phoenix. And it's like, that's really nice. But they were in St. Louis for a long time. They were in Chicago. Like, this is a bad franchise that has no history of winning. And he has entered the hardest division in football. They don't have a quarterback. And they have an organization that was defensive led and yet no real star defensive like studs. It's not like he's going to get Myles Garrett or something.
Yeah. Do you think this is do you think they want him to like try and make Kyler work? Or do you think they're just going to play it a year with Kyler and completely move on?
If
after
I
that
was
because
them, I
they
would
can't get a quarterback this draft
no.
that's going to be, really good unless they luck out.
So I have two. If I didn't want, I didn't know if we were going to do another episode of like fix these teams, but I've thought about this. If I'm a Cardinals fan, here's what I'm wanting. I'm wanting them to trade Kyler. Kyler is now very tradable with his contract. And think about all the teams that need quarterbacks. There's a ton of them. So I would try to get like a second rounder for Kyler, right? You know what I mean? Maybe even a first. I don't know. Like, what can you get for Kyler? Second and a fourth, or like something back for Kyler. You need the picks. You know what I mean? Go get 2 third-round picks. Go get 2 second-round picks. I don't know what the market is for Kyler, but go get whatever you can get for him. And then I would try to trade, or I think he's actually a free agent. Go get Malik Willis. You knew my brother loves you. I run a similar thing, and let's do that for a year or two, right? Sign him to one of those nice, like Justin Fields, 3 years, 30 million, right? Like, hey,
Sure.
go you comeback story. If it works, it works, right? It's great. If it doesn't, it's like, hey, this isn't the draft, and we're going to go get our guy next year. Like that would be my playbook if I'm Arizona. I would try to move on, complete coach, quarterback out, fresh start, get something for Kyler, sign a Malik Willis, and be like, hey, we're going to do the Sam Darnold thing. We're going to go do we got a guy on a good deal. With an offensive
Would you even
coach.
trade Marvin Harrison? Would you just say we need a total reset? Because he's the guy that's
Well,
probably going to garner the best
yeah,
return.
I would still keep him and say, hey, now we have an offensive guy. We have our weapon. You know what I mean? They have good
Yeah.
with Marvin Harrison. And why can't I think of the other kid's name? The other
Ray
young
McBride?
McBride, but the other wide receiver who really popped for them, who like led them at the
Oh,
end of
yeah,
the year.
yeah. Floyd.
Yeah.
Michael Floyd.
It's like, hey, you have weapons. So like build the offensive line. Just go all in on offense. Just completely flip it around, right? Just go get a Malik Willis, draft a running back, draft some offensive linemen, and go try to be really fun and lose games 28 to 30 next year, and try to build your program like that. You know what I mean?
Let's talk about the Tennessee Titans. Let's talk about Robert Saleh. We kind of did already a little bit. The staff were liking what he's building there. How do you feel about his prospects in Nashville?
What I feel is he's going into a difficult situation. The AFC South is maybe as good as it's ever been. The Houston Texans have made 3 straight playoffs, 3 second rounds of the playoffs, and they have a very, very solid head coach and quarterback combo. A quarterback who is definitely on a prove it year and is going to be doing everything in his power to prove he deserves a big contract. You have a head coach in Indianapolis who's, we know, very talented offensive guy that clearly, when he gets competent quarterback play, can win games in this league. And then you have the Jaguars in Florida that have completely turned it around in a year with an offensive guy and maybe the best quarterback in the division, probably the best quarterback in the division. So it's a tough situation. But what does he have going for him? Well, he has, I think, an organization that has to be committed to him. And he built an incredible coaching staff. I think I wrote it down here somewhere else, besides Daboll, Gus Bradley is the DC. Now, again, he's going to dictate the DC, but you have 2 former head coaches in your coordinator spots. You're building a really, really competent staff to say, hey, let's just get this thing headed in the right direction. So I think there's a lot of positive for Saleh. I like Cam Ward, but I think there's definitely some question marks with Cam. But again, is that Cam or is that what was around him? We'll know a lot more in a year from now. So I don't expect Tennessee to all of a sudden be a 9-win team, but I wouldn't be shocked if their ceiling is closer to 9 wins than it is to 5 or 4 wins.
Yeah, I think I would pick them to win probably 7 games next year. If I'm just like thinking off the cuff, like without seeing their schedule, I could absolutely see them being a team that like hangs around and competes, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of all you can ask for with the stage that they're at with a whole new coaching staff. But yeah, as you pointed out, a lot of adults in the room,
Yeah.
and they've all been there, done that. So I think
And,
that's a huge bonus.
really quickly for Saleh, you're probably banking on the fact that, listen, something's going to go wrong in with at least one of my division rivals, right? Like something's going to
Yeah.
go wrong in either Houston or Jacksonville or in Indy, because just historically that's going to play, and so maybe that gives you a little bit of the division isn't as tough as we think it is.
Yeah, that's fair. And honestly, they've got last year they had moments. I mean, they played a lot of teams tight, right? They just
Yeah,
weren't on the winning end, and it's like if they were that close so many times last year, a guy like Robert Saleh, you would think,
yeah.
especially with his defensive prowess, would be able to keep them in even more
They
games and potentially with the now the
They
Daboll and
need to
the other
have a
influence.
they need to have a great draft. Like they
They
need
do.
to
They
just
just
they
need
need
guys.
to
Absolutely.
one first, second, third round all need to be like with the Bears draft this year. Like 3 rookies, 1, 2, and 3 that you're like,
That all
boom,
contribute.
absolutely contribute. And then a guy in the 7th round, like a Manung guy, you need to find also like one other guy in a later round. You're like, oh, that guy really played well. Like they
Yeah.
need a solid draft.
How do you feel about the Bills promoting from within and Joe
Yeah.
Brady finally getting his shot? I mean, he's been tossed around obviously in
Yeah.
several coaching cycles, never broke through, but he's got that relationship with Josh Allen. They're obviously going from the defensive focused to offensive focused. This one has had a lot of controversy around it because a lot of people do give Sean McDermott a lot of flack for just not having the
Yeah.
success with this MVP caliber quarterback. But at the same time, this organization won nothing for the longest time
And then he showed
before
up.
McDermott got there. He turned them into routine playoff contenders and playoff
They've
game
won.
winners.
Yeah, yeah, it's and he did with Tyrod Taylor before
Right?
Josh
Yeah,
Allen.
exactly. And he did it with young Josh Allen's
Yeah,
too. So like
yeah,
there's a lot there, and Joe Brady certainly isn't the guy that made Josh Allen who he is. If you're gonna say anybody did,
yeah,
then it would be Daboll and that connection earlier on. So obviously Joe Brady's been floated around. He's a good offensive guy. I do just wonder though if there's enough there, to because offense really hasn't been the problem,
yeah.
right? So
I think the craziest thing about it all is the press conference, right? And the ownership group exposed themselves as, oh, wait. Maybe McDermott and Allen have been covering up a lot of craziness, which is why they haven't been good for so long. When you have an owner go, I didn't know I was going to fire my head coach until this happened. And I saw how bad it was
right,
in the locker room with the
was bad.
culture.
Yeah.
And then you're like, so we needed a culture change. So we hired someone from within the culture. Like, wait, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Like, again, it
And
checks
then
boxes.
blaming the pick of
Yeah.
Keon Coleman on McDermott, and then obviously all the receipts came out after the fact of showing video of the GM actually saying, "This is who I want. This is the guy. We're getting Keon Coleman." So, like, I
And you don't
you're
think the offensive
directly
coordinator
confronted with
like signed off on a wide receiver pick? It's
yeah,
crazy, dude. So I agree with you. Like again, it checks boxes like young, offensive minded, like that's where the league is going, right? They have Josh. I don't think the Bills are going to all of a sudden be a 7-win team. Like I don't think Josh Allen is going to
right.
be. If Josh Allen is playing, I don't see them like losing games. Like I don't see that. Like even like what happened with the Chiefs this year. Like Pat Mahomes before the injury, they were out of the playoffs. Like Pat Mahomes was losing games. I don't know if I can see that for Buffalo because in the AFC East, I think they still have some guaranteed wins built in with the Jets and with Miami to start. And then it's like I think the Patriots are going to come back to earth a little bit. So I haven't seen their schedule, but I'm not predicting doom for the Bills. But if in 3 years from now, where it's like the Bills are having kind of like what the Chiefs just had, where it's like, dude, what is up with them? Or like kind of what the Ravens just had, like, why can't they win? It wouldn't shock me if things fall off the rails a little bit. I don't know if he is Sean McVay or Ben Johnson. I don't, or Andy Reid, or Kyle Shanahan. I don't know.
Yeah, I I always have a pause when I don't know. There's not much reporting about how many interviews he had. It seemed like the Bills were really the only team in contention for him. That always gives me a little bit of pause to begin with. And on top of it too, I mean, I know I'm probably speaking outside on both sides of my mouth right now because you do want the great coordinator to be your head coach so you don't lose him. At the same time, that coordinator has to be a special type of person because calling plays and being a head coach is a really hard job. Like you're having to do two jobs at once and thinking about game management at the same time. I mean, of course, these guys can hire assistants to help them with things like that. But you pair that all with then being a first-time head coach. Your first-time head coach who's now going to likely be calling plays.
Yeah.
That's just a lot. It's a lot on your plate, and that's why there's only 32 jobs, available, and only 5 that kind of like stay the test of time because it's a really hard job to do. So there's a lot of question marks about that and where they'll get. They need to prioritize getting some receivers in that room. They need to prioritize continuing to build that offensive line, and they need to recoup the defense that has been starting to get old.
They better be aggressive because again, this to me signals like we just think we're a different voice away. Okay, well, go be aggressive. You weren't aggressive last offseason, and we criticized you for it.
Yeah,
And
Joey Bosa was like the only thing.
Go be
right?
aggressive.
Finally, let's go to Clint Kubiak, who goes
Yep.
to the Las Vegas Raiders, that's a team that even more so than the Cardinals, like they are in a where are we going? What are we doing here type of situation. But the guy just fresh off the heels of leading the Seattle Seahawks to a Super Bowl championship is certainly being credited with the success of Sam Darnold, although that obviously you can question a lot of things in regards to that. But Seattle had a great offense all year long. Are you confident? Like, where do you feel the range of outcomes here is for Clint Kubiak? And
well, the possibility is very easy that he'll be fired within 3 years because that's what the Raider. I mean, like historically, that's what happens.
Yeah.
But I say, if I'm a Raiders fan, I'm saying to myself, this checks the boxes. Young offensive guy that is coming in and is going to. We don't have to worry about his offense being stolen away. But again, it's just unfortunate that is right now that division is right there with like, what am I doing? Like it's loaded with talent, loaded with winners, loaded with head coaches. And so good luck to him. I wish nothing but success, but it is a tough hill to climb. Now, as an offensive guy, you got Genty, you got Bowers, you know what I mean? You have some pieces there offensively. The offensive line needs a lot of help. And so go out there and they're a team that I think just same with the Cardinals. Just go out there and lose games 28-30. And maybe you get to 5-6 wins, but we're feeling much better about your turnaround. This is not a Patriots-Bears turnaround situation with Arizona and Vegas, mainly because unlike the Patriots, the Bears, the divisions were much more workable. And it's hard. The Bears, maybe it's a little that's a little crazy to say, and maybe I'm not giving Ben Johnson enough credit, but like. This is massive dearth of talent in Vegas and a massive.
I can't name a defensive player on.
Well, Crosby.
Crosby. Yes, of course. Yeah. But like,
don't ask me to name another
outside of Trayvon Mayrig. I don't even know if he's still there, and that like no idea.
And so yeah, it's a tough hill to climb, but. And also he has a huge disadvantage. He is the last person to build his staffs. Like, a lot of guys already got new homes. It's a tough gig. So
fishing from the bottom of the barrel.
Hopefully, with Brady there, they give him time. They give him, the resources needed because they need some stability there in Vegas for sure.
For sure, yeah, they need to find their quarterback too, and that's likely going to happen here in the draft
Fernando.
in April. So it all starts there.
So, Dan, I have a couple okay, so I have a tiny list of just some other like names of like other positions. There's funky, kind of like the John Fox, Matt Nagy we started with.
Okay, yeah, sounds good.
So the Jets get Frank Reich as their offensive coordinator. To me, the storyline behind that is interim head coach midway through the year when they
Yeah.
fire Aaron Glenn.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
The Eagles go and get Sean Mannion as their new offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
Sean Mannion is a guy who wasn't calling plays and now is going to be calling plays. Another offensive coordinator, so keep an eye on that. The Commanders, they again get a guy who was never called plays. Former quarterback David Blau, he was their quarterback coach. He's now their offensive coordinator.
I actually like that though. He was like a guy that was really considered to be. They didn't want to lose him, and so they were like, "We got to promote him."
Well, yeah, but I mean, Cliff just also was like, "I'm out of here," and that
Well,
says
yeah.
something because again, Cliff then
True.
where's Cliff Kingsbury? He's with the Rams. So like it's one of those like that's just interesting, right? The Ravens have hired Bears offensive coordinator Declan Doyle, who's not even 30 years old, to call plays. Never has called plays in his life. He did not call plays with the Bears. That's Ben Johnson's job. That will be something really interesting. You have this young Jesse Minter. He gets this young Declan Doyle who comes from Sean Payton in Denver as a tight ends coach, and then obviously Ben Johnson in Chicago as an offensive coordinator who doesn't call plays. And now it's like you have Lamar Jackson go call plays. Like that is
and Derrick Henry.
That's a lot of weight. The talk about name that you just never thought you'd have to say again. The Cardinals. Now, again, their head coach, we assume, is going to call plays, right? But they hire Nathaniel Hackett from the grave. Now, maybe his brother worked with him in Green Bay. He's their new offensive coordinator. That one is a funny name. Just like midway through the season, you're going to be watching Cardinals on Thursday football.
You're going to be like, oh.
Nathaniel Hackett is back in the league. He's not calling plays as the offensive coordinator. I think I have one or two others. Yes. Lions hire offensive coordinator Drew Petzing as their OC. I actually, as a Bears fan, hate this. I like this as a Lion. If I'm a Lions fan, he actually got head coaching interviews a couple of years ago. The Bears almost hired him even last year. Like he was on their list before they could talk to Ben Johnson. He was one of their let's talk to guys. So he had been getting consideration. What was the one good thing about the Cardinals at the end of the year? Their offense, Jacoby Brissett just putting up numbers, and they won that game at Dallas. Like, I think he can coach some offense, and I think it's smart for the Lions to say, "Hey, let's bring in an outside voice. Let's get someone outside of the building because we tried to promote from within and that didn't work." Packers hire Jonathan Gannon as their new DC, so they take a reclamation project. Head coach, former good defensive coordinator with the Eagles, gets his chance with that really talented defense. I hate that as a Bears fan. Eric Bieniemy is the head offensive coordinator for the Chiefs. You know what I mean? What a guy. When we started this show 5-6 years ago, I was like, dude,
he was going
to be a head coach. Never got the chance. Went all the way down to college. The Bears gave him a lifeline. He was great as a running back coach for the Bears last year. And I think it's smart to bring him back and kind of shift off from Nagy. The Chiefs were putting up 50 points a game. But you know what I mean? That's when Mahomes was throwing 50 touchdowns. When Bieniemy was his OC, not when Nagy was. Obviously, that's Tyreek Hill, and there's some other things. Maybe they bring in Tyreek Hill to get the whole band back together. I don't know. And then, we already talked about the Chargers getting Chris O'Leary. So there you go. There's just some other interesting things to keep an eye on. I really think the Ravens, that Declan Doyle hire, there's a lot of pressure. I mean, never calling plays before. Now you have the two-time MVP Lamar Jackson.
Sure. Yeah, that is a lot of pressure.
And
but maybe at the same time, it's like that having that good of talent can mask some of your bad play calls, right?
Yeah, maybe. So there's besides the head coaching decisions, there's some really important coordinator hires that we keep our eye
For
on.
sure. Yeah, no, those are extremely important positions to keep an eye on, and we'll be talking about some of them, I'm sure, next year as part of the next coaching cycle. So, wow, that was a big
Yeah,
episode. 10 openings. It's the biggest we've experienced here
in
on the
our
show.
yeah, I think so.
So yeah, glad we got through that all in one piece, and a lot more to talk about as we
Free
ramp up
agent
here for the not just the draft. We got the combine coming up in just a
well,
couple
and
of
free
weeks.
agency starts,
And
I
free
think
agency, we got the
March.
franchise tags.
Yeah, it's all happening so great. It's so quick. It's so great.
Yeah,
It's just juicy.
a lot to look forward to here in the coming weeks. We'll see you back here next week with another episode of the Football Lounge with Mark and Dan. Stay tuned.